Hi, everyone. This is Jim Ciaula live with Sean Rosensteel, the author of The School of Intentional Living. And we're excited to have you with us today. We are on multiple platforms live on StreamYard, Facebook, LinkedIn, and more. So hello to the audience. Let me do a quick introduction for Sean. He's the author and founder of the Intentional Living Academy. With a passion for helping others, Sean's journey began when he found himself bankrupt at the age of 28. And after following conventional wisdom all of his life, he had an eye-opening moment that taught him that attaining true happiness and fulfillment means breaking free of the social change and creating your own path. Now he hopes to inspire and empower his readers to achieve their dreams and live the lives they truly deserve. Sean recently moved to Dallas, Texas, which breaks my heart, with his loving wife, Karen, and their 3 young children. And they intend to frequent St. Charles, especially during summer months, to reconnect with family and friends. We are excited to have Sean with us. And for more information, you can visit www.seanrosensteel.com. So welcome, Sean. Great to be with you today.
You too, Jim. Thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for doing this on the Chamber's platform. This is exciting.
Yeah. We are so excited, and today is the official launch of the book. Am I correct?
Yeah, it just published a few hours ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to get my own not for resale copy of the author book, and I've had some time to be able to read it, and I think it's an excellent book. Before we get into the book, Sean, maybe and some Q&A, maybe share a little bit with our audience a bit about yourself. I know I did a high-level overview, but what would you like the audience to know about Sean Rosensteel?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I know we have a lot of people from the Tri-Cities on this stream today. So I grew up in St. Charles. I have lived in St. Charles for 28 of the 38 years I've been here. And I recently, like you said, moved to Dallas, and just continuing to pursue writing books. This was my first one, and I'm pretty content with how it turned out, thanks to a lot of people's feedback. I mean, I had quite a few chamber members help me with some of the ideation of the book, some of the editing of the book. In fact, a lot of people are recognized in the acknowledgments in the back section there. So right now, what I'm up to is obviously promoting this book throughout the rest of the year, and then also promoting an online course, which is the Intentional Living Academy, which will support readers a little bit in a deeper way. So I hope this is the first of many books. One of my great mentors, Wayne Dyer, who I mentioned in the book, published 43 books in his lifetime, over half of which went on to become New York Times best sellers. So I'm chasing after him, Wayne. I'm coming after you, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. I'm going to ask those in whatever medium that you're joining us. You could provide questions in the comment section of your particular medium, and we will be fielding those questions. I have a few to start, and we'll go back and forth. So please share your questions about the book or any questions you may have for Sean. But let's get started with what books and authors inspired you during your life journey, Sean?
There's so many of them. You and I have talked a lot about reading, and I'm an avid reader. So some of the books that have made a very profound difference, I would say, are a lot of Wayne Dyer's books. The Power of Intention was a big one. The Shift, which is about moving from a place in life from ambition to meaning. That was a really big wake-up call for me when I read that a few years ago. Let's see, Eckhart Tolle, I'm a big fan of him as far as The Power of Now and A New Earth. I think we've talked a little bit about that before. I'm a big fan of Brendon Burchard, High Performance Habits, Motivation Manifesto, Millionaire Messenger. I've been to a few of his live events. I'm a big fan of him. Paulo Coelho, who is the author of his most well-known book, is The Alchemist. It's a fictional parable. Big fan of Paulo. So there's quite a few of them. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I read that book back in high school. Didn't really understand it all that well, but kept at it in college, kept at it post-school. and feel like I have a little bit of a better grasp on that now. I read that about once or twice a year. So those are a few people who have influenced me quite significantly.
Great. So transitioning a bit, many authors out there, a lot of great content. What was the driver behind you writing a book, and more specifically, why this book?
Yeah, so for me, I've always admired authors for their ability to really clarify and organize their thoughts around a subject matter. And ultimately, I've admired them for their courage to, put the written word out there and expose that to public criticism. So I am I think it's called bibliotherapy. 10 years ago when I needed a lot of help, I couldn't afford all that much. I was bankrupt. And I feel like books and reading and learning, once it became relevant for me, really changed my life in a very big way. So I've always just had this idea that maybe someday I could write a book myself and contribute, as so many other authors have that have come before me. And I felt like this was a good one to start with. I have a few other ideas in mind, but this to me was very foundational. This to me was the approach that I learned over the years to really help me go from a place of being lost and unfulfilled in my own life to a place of living much more intentionally and ultimately finding fulfillment and more meaning and more purpose in every area of my life. So I felt like I should start with this one. And ultimately, people say, oh, it's dedicated to your parents, and it is. But ultimately, I really wrote in the hopes that maybe one day, if they too find themselves lost like I did back in my 20s, this might be a little bit of a map out of the woods for them.
Sean, I really enjoyed the book. I loved many aspects of it. One of the things I found about the book is that you were very open, transparent, and authentic throughout the entire book. And as a result, it makes one vulnerable, and you made yourself very vulnerable, sharing things that many would not share. And I would say using that in order to help others, how it helped you and how now it could have impact with others, which I very much appreciated. Why did you take such an approach? You had many options in how you could bring your story alive.
Yeah, I think going back to what I mentioned a little bit ago, I think the fact that I really wrote this with my children in mind, that concept for me gave me that North Star to keep myself honest and to hold myself accountable to what I was looking to do. So that really helped, because being transparent, being open, being honest with my kids is always something that I've valued, and I've always tried to do, and I will continue to try to do. But it wasn't easy. I grew up in a family that values privacy. So it was a real struggle for me to put some of that information, especially in the introduction, about a little bit of my story. It was a struggle, and I had some second thoughts. But I worked with two very great, just incredible editors who really pushed me to remain courageous in the writing and hold true to, the authenticity of my story. And I'm very grateful I did. And now that, I'm out of the closet a little bit with all that stuff, it's not as scary and it's not as intimidating, I think, as it once was. But certainly, we did an advanced reader campaign, which, you were nice enough to take the time to read. What was that, a month or two ago? And I realized the moment after I hit send on that email to a couple hundred people, like, oh my gosh, I'm the only person in the world who's read the manuscript, including my two editors. So there's 3 people under the sun that have seen this thing, and it just went out to my parents, as well as everyone else. So I got a little bit nervous. And then a few hours later, my dad's an avid reader. He's a fast reader. A few hours later, my dad's like, he just sends a very short text. He's like, read the book, call me. And I'm like, oh my God. I kind of panicked a little bit, but it was so cool because I called him back after I, mentally beat myself up for about 10 minutes, wondering what the heck is his feedback going to be and how upset's he going to be at me. And it was probably the neatest 30-minute conversation I've ever had with my dad. He just really sang the book's praises, gave me a lot of compliments. And I mean, I was in tears listening to him. So that was for me, that was validation. And I knew that by being vulnerable and making that decision that I was in a good place, because, you know, if he could say those things and if he could validate my story and my experiences and my vulnerability, and if he thought that was okay, I can think that's okay, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's great. You know, when I think about building relationships, and many of us have, you know, all different kinds of relationships, but I think the deepest relationships that we have with one another are when we can be vulnerable with those people around us. We all have a story, and in that story, you can use it for good or evil. You could choose to be a victim of that story, or you can actually choose and say, what do I learn from this? And how do I take this and make a difference in my life? And then, if relevant, you know, we may not go hang a street sign about our story, but we're relevant in the conversations we're having with others. And as we walk life with different individuals, we could tap into that story as to how it may be meaningful and how it makes it different. And it's such a richer friendship and richer relationships, I find, when we could actually tap into our stories. And so I felt like I got to know you at a whole nother level from reading the book, but also thinking about, how do I use my story and how do others use their story to live more intentionally? So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm a big fan of Bo Eason, and he's, you know, named the world's greatest speaker. And he always talks about storytelling. And he says that, you know, by telling your story, you're putting that connective tissue out there to the audience, and you're giving them something to grab onto and to bring them in and to, you know, share and co-create that story with you. So yeah, it's a very powerful thing. I mean, Brene Brown, right, talks a lot about the power of vulnerability. And yeah, I think, you know, you and I hit it off instantly, you know, when we met so many years ago, because I think both of us were, you know, we didn't like the small talk. We just wanted to stay a little bit, you know, beneath the surface, so to speak.
Yeah.
We're not surface level people.
Right. No, so, true.
Yeah. Very, very easy to connect in that way.
True. Sean, do you see comments on your end?
So I don't see comments, but we got a lot of people waiting to come on. So should we bring some people on?
Sure.
Cool. I see. Cool. All right. So I'm going to bring on Pat to the stream. Hey, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
I think there you go. How are you?
I'm very good. Much better than last week. I just got done with a tax deadline. So the longest tax season in history. So survived.
That's behind us now, huh?
Yes. Yes. You know, there's always deadlines, but at least I get to enjoy a little bit of the calm.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet.
Pat, any questions you want to share with to ask Sean? Or
I know you said that, you know, your goal is to write more books. What would you like to see this book do for people? What is your thought? What would make you feel satisfied that I wrote this book and this is what happened?
Yeah, good. That's a great question. My wish is that it serves as a bit of a wake-up call for people. You know, my bankruptcy served as my wake-up call 10 years ago. And if you read the book, you know that I missed a lot of calls along the way. I had plenty of opportunities to take my life a little bit more seriously and discover what it is that I truly wanted in life. And I missed those calls. So I think right now, just based on this global pandemic, I think this is a very interesting time. I actually think a lot of people are using this pandemic to serve them as their wake-up call, and to try to step back a little, pause, reflect on what it is that matters, what's meaningful, and what does the future hold for, you know, for me, for the people I love, lead, serve, my family, etc. So I'd really like to, I would love it if this book could serve almost as a curriculum, as a roadmap to help people discover, you know, what some of those answers are to those difficult questions.
Great. Thank you. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Pat. And it sounds like you just got the, oh, go ahead, Jim.
Go on. No, go on, Sean.
Hey, you're the moderator. I don't want to interrupt you, my friend.
No, I was saying there's some other questions that have come in, so I was gonna share them with you, but I don't want to cut Pat short.
No, I'm good. Go ahead and let somebody else ask a question.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Pat. I appreciate
Thanks,
you being
Pat.
here.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
You bet. All right, we got some questions here.
Yeah, is Georgia or Keith on that you could bring them in and they could ask you directly?
Let's see. Keith is saying, thanks, Sean and Jim, for doing this. You are welcome, my friend. Keith, it's good to see you on here. That's cool. So
he has a question too.
Yeah, if you have a question, let us know, Keith. We'll pop you back.
It's right there. His question is, what was the most enjoyable thing about writing the book?
Ooh, and I like his little zebra elephant. Yeah, my wife and kids are calling that the zebrelephant, I believe. Now, let's see. What was the most enjoyable thing about writing the book? Yeah, good question, Keith. I think the writing itself, writing can be very therapeutic, but there's kind of this fine balance, because what you don't want to do is write a book that's serving yourself as the author and isn't serving the reader. So it was kind of this fine line between writing and getting some things out, but then kind of just remembering that, hey, the reader is reading autobiographically. They don't really care about you all that much as an author, and you're really reading with the mindset of what's in this for me. So I think the writing itself was the most enjoyable, but it was hard to kind of balance that out through the writing process, to always remember the reader's best interests and remember that, hey, they're really looking to get something. I've learned a lot this year. I made the decision to write the book at the beginning of the year, and I've always wanted to write this book for the past 5 or 6 years. And I, finally made that decision early in 2020. And it's been an interesting journey. I mean, there's a real process in place. You have to plan it, you have to write it, you have to edit it, you have to design it, you have to publish it, and then you have to market it. So there's kind of like what I see this six step, or more like phase process. And if I look back, I would say, Keith, that writing it was and for me personally, it was so enjoyable because this has been bottled up in my head for a long time. I never had the courage to make it happen. But in early March, I lost about 90% of my business coaching clients, and it was very easy for me to hunker down and focus on this one singular thing. I didn't have the courage over the past few years to burn my ships, so to speak, and I really enjoyed business coaching, and I still do that. I still serve clients in that capacity. So it was really hard to give up and turn that down and start focusing on this. But I think with all of us being in quarantine and with the pandemic happening, the stars aligned, and it was the right time to do it. So I think the fact that I was finally able to get my thoughts on paper in what I believe and I hope is an organized fashion was just the most enjoyable part of it. So great question, Keith. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. Sean, let me build on that question. So with that in mind, what was your greatest learning? What did you learn about yourself, or did you, I'd imagine you would, that came out of actually putting all these thoughts onto paper? What did you take away from it? And I'm sure that might be an ongoing bit of a journey, but.
I think I learned that I need to go through this myself because I've been practicing what I preach, so to speak, for many years. But through the writing, I think I discovered some new ways to do certain things, and the process, the approach over the years has certainly evolved. And I've had the good fortune of coaching individuals and in groups, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback. So this really helped me to just crystallize exactly what it was that this approach actually entails. And I think for me, I learned that, gosh, there are certain areas of improvements for myself and for my own life that I need to begin focusing on and paying attention to. So that was a bit of a learning experience for me as well, as far as saying, okay, I'm going to author this book. I'm going to stand behind this approach, and I need to be doing this full measure in my own life. I need to walk the talk, so to speak, here. Yeah. Well, it was great because it kind of checked me a little bit and helped me understand that I also, had room for improvement as well.
Okay. If we were live, I would offer you some water on the set, but I don't have that right now, but hopefully it's nearby. There you go. Georgia, I don't know if she's in the room, but we have a question that she said, before you wrote the book, you mentioned helping some people, a high schooler. How did you find them, or did they find you?
Yeah, cool. Hey, Georgia. Georgia and I had an awesome conversation last Friday. She was just interviewed on the news, and she did such a fantastic job. And I love Career Vision. I love what she does. I love what that company does. So great to hear from you, Georgia. Thank you for being here. Let's see. Yeah. So the high schooler, that's an easy one. That was my 16-year-old niece. This was many years ago, back when this approach was in the very early stages. So how did I find them? I met her through my sister. My sister introduced me to her when she was born. So that's an easy one. Yeah, but she was actually the youngest person I have taken through. I don't remember. I think she was maybe a sophomore at St. Charles East, believe it or not. Yeah, so I think she was the earliest person that I took through the program. And I see, by the way, thank you, Georgia. Great to see you here. I see, by the way, that Mr. Jay Rogers is on. Can I bring him onto the stream here, Jim?
Yes, while you're doing that, I think you need a shout out to Karen and the kids. They're watching you live, and the kids are still trying to figure out that their daddy is an author. So, you need to acknowledge them here on the big day of your launch.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, kiddos. Love you, and thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys are enjoying a good lunch, and make sure you eat everything on your plate. Okay, let's make your mom proud. Awesome. Thanks, guys. I'm proud of you too.
Okay, there he is.
Rogers.
Hi, Jay.
Nice. Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for doing this, Jim and Sean, both. Definitely fun to get on, and keeping me on track with my homework in the book. So well done.
Awesome. Yeah, we were just talking about the 16-year-old that went through the program. She happens to be working for you now. Is she in the office?
She will be shortly. She could probably be walking in at any moment here. So
we may have to bring her on.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have a guest spot, She's on the clock, so she kind of has to.
That's right.
Yeah, right. Hey, I think one of my questions would be, Sean, as we've talked about a lot of this. So you do such a good job of outlining the importance of determining, proactively or acknowledging or identifying our areas of life, and then establishing our goals and our key goals to do that. I guess any thoughts or advice with respect to, in our busy lives and in an environment where there's rampant and consistent distractions and things competing for our attention, my question would be best practices or any follow-up advice for maintaining our stated top priorities, where we're getting, other opportunities that are popping up all the time. Maybe in some cases you get a new opportunity that's a better move than your stated priority, in terms of something you're working on currently for the given quarter. So that would be my question, in terms of your process of evaluating those things and either staying true to the top priorities, or giving yourself the grace or the ability to be fluid and kind of walk that line, so that you're honoring your stated priorities, but not being maybe so rigid that you ignore or miss, something else that would serve your ultimate purpose.
Yeah. Can you restate that question? I was checking my email. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
No, it's a good one. I think, there's so many different strategies that come along with minimizing distractions and enhancing your focus and keeping your priorities front and center. But, I think we're up against and I talked about this in the book, but I don't think any one of us can appreciate the enemy, so to speak, that we're up against as far as the demands that are in our environment. I think that a lot of us are spread thin. We're struggling. We're getting pulled at in all sorts of directions. We end up shooting everything in the bushes that moves at times. And it's not easy right now, especially with where technology is. I think, Jay, you and I talked about some Donald Miller, marketing courses that we've tuned into before. And I think he says that, we're getting hit with 2,000 to 3,000 marketing messages on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of noise right now. And my prediction is similar to the gold rush of the 1840s. This era is going to be known as the attention rush. I think everybody is after our attention, and I believe it's the number one asset we've got, and it's 100% in our control. That's the good news. So we can choose, who and where we put our attention. So I think it's important, our attention, not intention, right? So I think it's important to set ourselves up for success as far as creating a focus-rich environment, a distraction-free environment. I think it's important for us to take control of our devices, to set ourselves up for success there. And I talk a little bit about that in the book. I also think awareness is a really powerful tool. There's an art and a science behind awareness. And, our brains have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. I mean, that's significant. And what's unfortunate is well over 90% of those thoughts are recurring thoughts. They're the same thoughts you had yesterday, last week, and the month before. And we really need to free up some of that space, I believe. So with more awareness into our priorities, if you have a list of goals, if you have a to-do list, whatever it is, put that up in your environment so that you can see it more often. Hang it on your mirror in your bathroom every morning, or put it next to your computer screen, or keep it open on your computer screen. I mean, to the degree that you can see that list of priorities more and more frequently throughout your day, it'll just help you to kind of tune into that and focus on it more frequently. Because if you're not being proactive like that, and if you're not visually seeing your priorities all throughout the day, every single day, you hardly stand a chance. Because it's a text message, it's an email, it's someone walking into the office, it's a child pulling at, one arm and another child pulling at another. So we have to, recognize the fact that this whole thing called distraction, it's an animal.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain weapons of mass distraction out there, like our phones, like Netflix, like YouTube. These things are all wired like casinos. Literally, that's how they're wired. I can't even read a description on Netflix anymore because it just launches right into the trailer or launches right into the season. When something ends on TV, it says, restarts in the next episode, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you're just in it again. That's no different than, oxygen in casinos, or the fact that they're just constantly looking for you to pull that arm again on the slot machine. So we need to I think it all starts with awareness, right? So I think we need to be more aware of what some of our worst offenders are when it comes to things that are taking us off what matters most every day, and protect ourselves a little bit better.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
Right.
Sean,
Cool.
I have a question for you. Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate you being here.
So, Sean, throughout the book, you've utilized an analogy of to school and the classroom. And at the end of each chapter, there's some key points and chapter assignments. And I know at the beginning you said read the whole book first, then go back and read it chapter by chapter, review the key points and the assignments, which makes total sense. How do you feel your readers will benefit from this framework of using the analogy that you did? It manifests throughout the entire book. So there was a deliberate and intentional approach to why you did that. Yeah.
Well, I love, by the way, here's a distraction. Thanks, Keith. He's grabbing his to-do list right now. He needs to look at it again. That a boy. Yeah, I struggled to write this book because intentional living is such a large topic. There's a lot of different undertones happening with this topic of intentional living. And I really wanted to take almost like a more agnostic approach at it, if you will. So for many years, I wasn't sure how I would write this book. I knew I wanted to write it, but I wasn't sure how. one of the things that really helps me when I read is when the subject matter and or when the author is highly relatable. So relatability for me was of the utmost importance as I was writing this book. So I decided to use the metaphor of school because so many of us have gone through school. We've experienced some level of formal education. And I think even if you just made your way through grade school, and even if you don't have a GED, you will still understand some of the core elements within the book. We all know what subject areas are. We all know what progress reports are. We all know what homework is. So I just wanted to make it really relatable so I didn't have to reinvent the wheel and ask people to learn an entirely new way of doing things or learn an entirely new framework that was proprietary and special. A lot of this book, as you know, was influenced very heavily by the formal education system. And when I had that aha moment, I wasn't happy about it because I didn't enjoy school. I was actually a very poor student. And nothing seemed relevant enough for me. So I was bored and just kind of going through the motions and bided my time until I got out. And it was interesting because when I recognized that, wow, school actually influenced a lot of my approach, the same approach I've been using for so many years that really got me out of the woods, so to speak. I wasn't happy. I always thought school was a waste of time, but I also felt like, I needed to give credit where credit was due. So there was no question that, my education and my experiences in school really did influence me. I just didn't necessarily recognize it yet. So I think it's a neat framework. I've been getting some really good feedback about it because it is so relatable and really easy to understand, and it's very actionable. So yeah, at the end of every chapter, I do summaries. Every book I read, I typically do a summary and or a mind map, depending on how relevant it is for me. And I wanted to just kind of summarize every chapter. So as you mentioned, there are some key points at the end of each chapter for review purposes, but also there are those chapter assignments, which are the action items. So as you know, I recommend, do a flyby, read this thing cover to cover. It's a short book. Read it over first. Make sure it aligns with you. You buy into it. It's a good fit for who you are and where you are at this stage in life. And if you do agree with it and you do think it will add value to your life, then go back through with a fine-tooth comb, reread it, and actually apply some of those assignments at the end of each chapter.
Great. We have a question in from Georgia, and she has read the book because she got to the end. It says, if one is working the homework list as one goes through life, our goals and priorities change as we age. Can you speak about course correction? Which I know that I believe that's one of the last chapters where you talk about you may have to take some time to course correct.
Yeah, great question, Georgia. Thanks. Absolutely, our goals and priorities change as we age. I mean, my goals and priorities change from this morning to now. So change is the only constant. We have to solve for that. We have to be flexible, and we have to constantly be taking that pulse. So course correction, I talk about that. I think that's chapter 9, if I'm not mistaken. And, I relate it back to taking retreats in school and how important that was to get outside of our, daily environment, get a fresh perspective, reset a little bit, plan for what's ahead, and then get back ready to go with a fresh brain and a fresh set of eyes. So yeah, I think it's important to course correct along the way. And in that book, I talk about course correcting short term on a weekly basis. We talk about course correcting on a quarterly 90-day basis, and then ultimately on an annual basis as well. So what's difficult is, a lot of us set these annual goals or we make a New Year's resolution, and then a couple months down the road, we miss those goals. And it may not be because we didn't try. It may be because what was that book? Who Moved My Cheese, right? It's because the target moved. So we need to be constantly aware of that and taking that pulse as far as, is this goal or is this priority still important to me? And if so, then, what appropriate action needs to be taken to help me move closer to accomplishing whatever it might be. So I talk about the airplane, the flight of an airplane, and how the great Stephen Covey once said that, 90% of the time an airplane is in the air, it's actually off course. So if you have an airplane that's flying from, LA to LaGuardia, the flight pattern's simple, point A to point B, but when it's in the air 90% of the time, it's actually off course. Now, the pilots are very fortunate because we all know they have this function called autopilot. They can flip it on, put their feet up, converse with the co-pilot and with the crew, maybe use the washroom, whatever it might be. We as human beings don't have that luxury. So I think in the book, I referred to that as, we need to perform our own manual autopilot. It's a bit of an oxymoron. But I would argue it's one of the most important jobs we have as human beings, maybe besides parenting, is to course correct ourselves along the way. And absolutely, Georgia, those goals, those priorities, what we're paying attention to, it's a moving target. It constantly shifts. So what was important to me last year may not be as important to me this year as it was back then. That's only normal. That's okay. That's just how life is. We constantly grow, we constantly evolve, and, new things come into our environment that, change our target, so to speak. They change the bullseye. And look at where we are right now. I mean, none of us could have predicted, here we are in July and we're living in a new world than we were living in even back in February. I know this all started back in November, December, but we weren't really aware of it. And the media didn't really grab onto it, I think, until maybe January, February, somewhere in there, at least here in the United States. So we have things that we plan for, right? We have goals that we want to strive to achieve and priorities that we want to focus on and all the rest of it. But when things come in that aren't planned, when change happens, external change that we aren't in control of and we didn't plan for, we need to constantly kind of lift our head up a bit and figure out what it is. Okay, what matters to me now? This thing happened in my life. Someone I love fell ill, or someone's aging, or, there was a death in the family, or I lost my job, or whatever it might be. My relationship's coming to an end. We need to give ourselves permission to climb the tree, so to speak, and get some fresh perspective and kind of recalibrate where we want to shift our focus for the coming week, month, quarter, whatever it might be. So great question.
Thank you. Could you bring in, I think Michelle Patino
she's on
out there. Can you bring her in? She has some questions for you, Sean.
Whoa.
Hi, Dolly.
How are you?
I'm good. It's so lovely to see you.
I know, likewise.
Hi, Michelle Patino Fully. Your new last name.
I'm fully something.
She was trying to fully promote herself on this.
Yeah, there you go.
I see your shelves are holding up behind you. That's a good sign.
I know, right? Nothing is falling behind my head.
That's good.
So one of my favorite things about you is your intentionality and the way that you are such a calm presence in my life specifically, but just in general. You just emote such calmness and intentional presence. And I so much appreciate you, and I appreciate you adding me to the dedication in the back of the book. It means the world to me just to have you as a part of my life. So I wanted to start with that. You made me cry, as you often do, so thank you. I'm the person running around making sure that everyone else has a mask before I put a mask on myself. That's who I am, and you and I have had many conversations about that. What I want to know is, I know that your intention with this book is to develop this into a full-on program to help other people, which is where you and I are so very similar, is we want to help spread that positivity and knowledge and help other people. So tell me about where you see this going and how I can get on board with Sean's School of Intentional Living, because as you know, I am the least intentional person about everything. It's always just help everyone else and figure it out as we go. So please tell me more.
Well, thank you, Michelle. That was awfully nice. Right back at you, by the way. And I wouldn't say you're unintentional one bit. You're very intentional about contributing and adding values to others, which is why I love you. So thank you. Yeah, so I've had to change gears a little bit this year. I've done some live events in the past, which have been a ton of fun. This is actually I mentioned the Intentional Living Academy. This is actually my third version of that course, and it's better than ever. And I'm really excited about launching that here at the end of the month for the third time. And we have done some masterminds in the past, and we have done some like 12-week webinar virtual type things with people not in the local Chicago area. So my initial intention was to do an in-person 12 to 24 person mastermind, but that obviously shifted. You know, that's not such a good idea right now. So in the future, all my focus basically for the rest of this quarter, at least for quarter number 3, is on the online course. Because it's virtual, I think a lot of people can tap into that as a resource and get a lot of value out of it. So yeah, I appreciate you asking, but that's where my focus is right now, is on the academy, on the online course.
Will there be a link?
There will be a link. Yeah. Yeah, right now, you know, there's so many people who have read the book and have downloaded the resources. There's a lot of free resources. You can grab a lot of the templates that I've used, not only with myself in my own life, but with my private coaching clients over the years. So there's a lot of resources. They're mentioned in the book. You can, you know, kind of get a shortcut if you're looking to apply some of those things. So right now, that's really the only entry point into the Intentional Living Academy, is if you grab the resources from the book, because that kind of flags me and lets me know that you're very interested in actually applying the lessons. But in August, I will have a completely different marketing campaign that's dedicated to enroll in the course. So I will definitely let you know about that. And thank you so much for your willingness to help me with that. You're the best. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Michelle. Sean, Jeff Schwartz is anxiously awaiting for you to let him in. Jeff.
Hey.
Hey, I'm so sorry that it took, I had a Keller Williams meeting at the same time, and then I just got home. Sorry about that.
No problem. No problem. You're live in front of about 12,458 people.
Did I kick off Michelle or what?
No,
she's off the show.
I'm just kidding. It's good to see you. Are you selling homes over there?
I was. I have been slow at the moment, but I have been selling homes, quite a few.
Good. Well, thank you for all your support along the way. You've been super helpful.
I wish I could do more. I'm just trying to keep my life I'm trying to just get my life going as much as I can here.
Hey, well, welcome to the stream. You're in the right place. That's what we're all trying to do.
Yeah, I know. So how's Dallas, man?
Dallas is good. Dallas is a little hot though. It's a little hot down here. Yeah, no surprises. It sounds like it's been pretty hot in Chicago though as well.
Yeah, it's been steamy.
Yeah.
Started raining a few minutes ago, and it got extra steamy because of that.
Yeah, that's too bad. Did you have a chance to read the book?
I did not.
You did not, Jeff.
Dude, I'm lucky I can get dressed in the morning.
You don't have time right now to read my book? What's wrong with you?
I'm working on it. I will read it. And you said there was like a Kindle version of it too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. In fact, you should have that, because I know that everyone who registered here, the chamber and Jim was nice enough to gift a copy of Kindle to you. So you should have an email from Amazon. When was that, Jim? This morning, I think.
This morning I sent it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thanks for your willingness to read it, Jeff. That means a lot.
I'd love to. There's not an audio version, right?
There is an audio version.
That's the thing. I drive a lot, so I really like to listen while I drive. It helps prevent me from being a road rager.
Yeah. I actually made it specifically for you. I had the narrator say, this audiobook is for Jeff Schwartz.
No, but you don't have an audio version, right?
I do. No, I do. Oh. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that also where can I find that?
Yeah. Well, you can find it everywhere, including an email that you registered. When you registered for this, you can actually get it. There's a link in there to go grab it. So all right. Well, go grab it. Or email me and I'll send you a copy of it. But yeah, it's available Google Play, Apple, Audible. Yeah.
No, perfect, because that's I hate reading. I like listening to books. I just can't concentrate that long to sit and read a book.
I get it. I get it.
I like to listen to books.
Yeah. 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 That net time is good. I think Tony Robbins calls that in the car when you're exercising, right? So that's huge. That's huge. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you, Jeff.
Sorry I was late. Hey, Jim.
No worries.
No worries. We're good. All right. I would like to ask if anyone has any questions, so please put it in the comments. And Sean, I have a question that I would like to ask you. So one of my favorite parts of the book, although there are many great parts of the book, is chapter 7, which talks about eliminating your major distractions. And Sean, I think you're frozen because I could tell from my end, so we might have lost you. So we'll see if you hear me. But I believe that eliminating your major distractions is a major root cause behind not being able to make progress. And you state on page 61 of your book, you talk about despite all the progress you may make, you may still find yourself getting pulled in all sorts of directions. And we do allow ourselves to do that. And after reading your book, I really felt a sense of freedom to be able to just say no to certain things that aren't part of my plan or intentional living, which I really thank you for that. But why do you think we allow ourselves to just get pulled in different directions? And I will say on a little comment, now that I read your book, I laugh sometimes because there's a couple days that could go by before I hear from Sean. And now I realize I just didn't make his list of intentional living. And it showed up on Thursday, even though I might have sent him an email on Monday. So it's very funny when you realize that people kind of have departmentalized things and are planning on certain days. When you quickly respond, then I'm wondering if you're off track and you weren't really being intentional because you responded to me and that couldn't have been on your list. So I'm like, he's not following his own rules. Anyway, I'm just jabbing at you. But
so first of all, the fact that we are in touch every few days should tell you that you are a high priority in my life, Jim.
No, I appreciate that, as you are. But
yeah. No, but it is funny because, again, as we mentioned, I did my best to kind of share and just show people what I was doing and how I work this. And it is funny because I'm getting caught. Like I mentioned, I've got, some big room for improvement here because people do text me back or they'll email me back and be like, aren't you in your morning plan, in your daily plan block hour or like block time? Like, should you be doing this? I'm like, you're right. I should be. Very difficult. Yeah.
But and why? Back to my question, I sidetracked this. But then, why do you think we allow ourselves to do that? And how do we get better at it? I'm sure it's by reading your book and applying some of those items. And I think his feed is frozen. Otherwise, he's going to drown himself with that glass of water. We're going to blame his brother-in-law's cable, who was so generously allowing him to use this space. But
sorry, Jim.
He's back.
That question was just too difficult for me to answer, so I'm not.
You drowned yourself with that water. It was completely frozen on our end.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so now that I've got that 15-second gulp of water. Sorry about that. So great question. I think our brains are wired for survival. I think a lot of us, we're very fortunate. There's not real threats any longer in our environment, but our brain is still going to operate in that capacity. So I think I likened our brain to like a dog fetching a ball. Like there's something in our environment that demands our attention, and we're like a dog chasing after that ball. We'll go over and over.
And over.
So again, it's all about awareness. We have to recognize it.
Yeah.
So I think it starts with awareness. Then I think it's building a new habit. You know, we are in the habit of reactivity, and I think it's a matter of building a new habit of proactivity. And it takes some time. It doesn't happen overnight, but you just need to start. And through practice and repetition, you'll simply get better and better and better at it over time. But even I, to your point earlier, when you called me out on answering your texts, and you're right. I mean, that's absolutely right. So it's, for me, a lifelong skill that I have to continue to develop, continue to work on, continue to have an awareness for. And, you know, ultimately we hope that, you know, 80% of our days are spent very intentionally. And if there's certain areas of life or parts of our day that, you know, we're distracted, great. I think we all need distractions. I think we all need a little variety in our lives. And I don't think we should feel bad or apologize about those things, whatever they might be, as long as we're doing those things at the appropriate times, right? So like I'll be on my phone answering texts or, you know, answering some Facebook notifications, whatever it might be. And I'll catch myself standing in the kitchen at like 5:30 right before dinner. And, you know, my wife's in the kitchen, my kids are in the room next door. And it's like, why am I doing this? It's just old habit. I'm going back, or I hear something and I go over there. I just respond. And I think all of us, like dogs chasing balls, can be very reactive based on the demands. So it's just a matter of catching yourself and saying, wait a minute, you know, is this activity appropriate right now? And for me, it's like, no, put my phone down, turn it off, be with my wife, help her out in the kitchen, or go play with the kids for 10 more minutes before dinner's served, you know, whatever it might be. But so, you know, are your behaviors and are your actions appropriate based on wherever you are, right?
I want to do a shout out. Like social media is great. So I want to say hi to Lalit, who's here, who's joining us from India. How exciting is that? Like It's day one of your publication, and we have Lalit from India. Welcome to the show and to the Q&A. That's so cool that you found us. Well, I'm not Sean.
I'm not seeing.
Yeah, it's in the comment section.
Oh, it's in the comments. Ooh, there's comment sections. Got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Isn't that cool? Yeah. So is there, do you have anyone else in the back room there, so to speak?
Hey, thanks, Chrissy. She says, slow down on that water. Chrissy's tuning in from St. Charles. Thank you so much for taking the time and tuning in. And then Karen responds with, he must have been dehydrated. I am a little dehydrated. Thank you.
Well, what happened is you froze.
I know.
And when the computer froze, it was just you pouring water down your throat.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, this is awesome, Jim.
It's great. Do you have anyone else in the StreamYard back room?
That's it. Does anyone else want back in? Pat, Michelle, Jeff? Everyone's going like this, blowing me kisses.
Wow.
Jeff, keep your shirt on, buddy. This is G-rated today. Come on.
My gosh.
Awesome.
Well, if there's any other questions, please fill them in the comment section. Before I leave, Sean, I just want to thank you so much for writing this book, for your friendship and your generosity. You bring so much to others and their lives, and I'm grateful that I've gotten to know you, but it's so exciting that you made yourself vulnerable to be able to share who you are and your thoughts with others. And I really think it's a very practical approach for living, and what a difference it's going to make in the lives of others. So thank you for your generosity in that. It was really great.
Thank you for those kind words. You know, I feel the same way about you. So thank you.
Thank you.
Laurel says, terrific overview. Can't wait to read the book. Awesome. Thanks, Laurel. Appreciate you being here with us today. As a reminder for everybody who registered for this live event, you should have received a link this morning from Amazon. Jim and the Chamber were nice enough to gift registrants a copy, a Kindle version. So be sure to click that link and redeem that soon. Quantities are limited, so be sure you get it. If for whatever reason you click the link and there's no more copies left, send me an email and I'll definitely make sure that you're taken care of.
It's great.
Awesome, guys.
Sean, thanks for your time. Good luck with the launch. And where if people want hard copies, I ordered some hard copies this morning through Amazon. Is that the place to go?
Sure. Yeah, wherever you want, whatever retailer is, good for you. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Kobo. Yeah, it just published this morning. I'm shooting for 1,000 copies sold this week.
Okay.
And we're getting there. So yeah, I'm very excited. Thank you for supporting it, Jim. That's fantastic.
Yeah. In the spirit of shopping local, I'd suggest we go to our local townhouse books and see if we get some in there and get them ordered from our local St. Charles bookstore, which would be kind of fun. So
yeah, I'll bring a box for David
there.
next time. Yeah, I'll bring a box for David next time I'm in town. That's a great idea.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, Sean, for joining us. Thank you to the Rosensteel family for being live, and to all of you, congratulations on your launch.
Thank you.
And we can't wait to be part of the journey to see your success.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jim. It's been a pleasure to be here with you today.
Same here. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.